Hello and welcome to the Visionary Mindset Podcast. A visionary is someone that thinks about the future in a creative way and someone that has a powerful plan for growth in the future. And I am Matthew Walter. I'm a business owner, a visionary, an entrepreneur myself, and I am here with Nate Davis, one of my good real estate agent and friends, and we're going to talk about why he is a visionary himself.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So tell us some things to get to know you better and kind of where you started and how you got to where you are today.
So I grew up in Placerville. When I was really young, we lived in some apartments downtown, just outside of downtown, and moved into Diamond Springs when I was like first, second grade. From there, kind of moved from place to place, renting different houses, living in some townhouses, et cetera, and went to school with mostly the same kids, through elementary, junior high, high school. And I think, honestly, growing up in the same town, small town, really attributed to a lot of my success as I kind of moved through my different careers.
Yep. Building those relationships.
Forever. Yeah, absolutely. So I worked, at Round Table Pizza was like my first job. So I had like a bunch of friends that I went to high school with that, we all worked together. From there, I got a job at Safeway bagging groceries and moved up in the ranks kind of rather quickly. Yep. Went from bagging groceries to being an assistant manager within 6 months. They kind of started moving me all over, and it was just my willingness to do whatever they wanted me to that helped me, move up. I got into another training program that was going to help me kind of further excel my career into the next management position, and they luckily had a position in El Dorado Hills, so I got transferred back down to El Dorado Hills. That was a 6-month program.
What age were you at this time?
I was 20.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was 20. And through this group that we were in, there was probably 30 or 40 of us from all over Northern California. And I happened to meet my wife in this group. She was working up in the South Lake Tahoe store. So that was kind of the start of that part of my life. And that was probably the only good thing to come from that management position. But I did that for a while, and it actually gave me a lot of responsibility and taught me how to manage people and how to manage different personalities, time management, et cetera, right?
Yep.
So as much as it wasn't what I wanted to do for my whole life, it gave me some skills that I, will continue to use now and moving forward. So I did that for a couple of years and decided, all right, this ain't for me. Right?
Yeah.
So I started to get my real estate license while I was still working for Safeway, and got my license mostly actually because when I was buying my house, my realtor made it look so freaking easy.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He was like in the car bragging about his commissions he's going to make, and I'm going to make $7,000 on this sale, and today I'm going to make $5,000. Didn't ever talk about how crappy the bad days are, and stuff, So I was like, well, I could do that. If this guy can do that, I can do that, right? So that's why
I feel like a lot of people get that impression.
Yeah. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. But so that's why I got my license, and so I got my license. Actually, started working at the same company that my agent, when I bought my house, worked for. And I thought I would get some training, learn the ropes a little bit. No.
Left on your own.
It was basically strapped some weights on my ankles and threw me into the pool.
Damn.
Right? And that's okay. I was able to swim a little bit. I flailed for a long time, actually. I'm not going to lie. But I just tried to watch the people that were highly successful. One person in particular, Jim Aldrich, he has been in the business since probably before I was even alive. I don't know. I know he used to build houses. He's been around the housing market forever. And he has such a good client base, and he carries himself so well that I was like, I got to
model myself after him.
Totally try to model myself after him in some way, shape, or form, right? Like take some things from him and spin it into, Nate Davis.
Yep.
So it was really nice to be able to sit by him and listen to him and see his mannerisms when he's talking to his clients, and then just kind of grow from there.
You talking about Safeway and how that kind of like led you into one thing. It was like, I don't know, just looking back on it now, like one of my first jobs was working at the car wash in Cameron Park, Charisma.
Sure. Yeah.
Charisma. Yeah. So I started working there beginning of high school, and I was like the first person that they hired at my age. Like they're like the manager there was like, look, like we haven't hired anybody your age in a while. He's like, but I see some potential in you. I was like, I'll give you a shot. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm like, it's just a car wash though.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but I think I can handle it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like working with all these other guys, these older guys, and I'm like, damn, like these guys are like, they're like, I'm working harder than them.
Yeah.
Like, and so within like 6 months, like I was just banging stuff out. Like I felt like I was like top dog there. And then all of a sudden all these guys from my high school started applying, and they just started getting accepted to the job because
Sure.
I think the manager saw like, wow, damn, like if he can do it, then maybe some other guys, around his age can do it. But
Right.
yeah, it was crazy. Just the few years that I was working there, and he wanted to offer me a manager position. But I was obviously in high school, so I was like, I can't, like, I can't drop out of school to come work here. I was like, I can only work weekends or after school. But yeah, it was a good learning lesson, I feel like. Just being able to like manage just, the people that you work with, dealing with customers that are a pain or a delight to work with.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like what I've transitioned into my business now, and like being able to deal with that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like at the time, you don't know that these lessons are going to be lessons that you're going to remember, 5, 7, 10 years down the road.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like, when I was working for Safeway and a customer would be just down my throat because we didn't have any, fresh turkeys 3 days before Thanksgiving, right? You're like, I'm sorry, you should have planned and gotten a turkey 3 weeks ago. We do carry them 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
I just, those are the things that go through my head, right?
Yeah.
But then you have to say, okay, well, now I have to take my thoughts and put them into, a more reasonable way that the customer is not going to bite my head off even further. And that translates to, where I am, in my business, right? Because everything's not hunky-dory like my realtor made me think back when I bought my house in 2011, right? There are things that happen in a transaction that are not always on plan, right? So you have to know how to adapt and how to communicate effectively to your clients, to other agents, to make sure that, when shit hits the fan, it doesn't spread everywhere. You can kind of calm everything down and find a solution.
Not letting your emotions control you. Because I remember distinctly this one time I was at the car wash and I was detailing this person's car, and I made it was disgusting. I made it immaculate, like perfect job, right? I was in the detail center, like they put me there for a reason, and this lady comes and I'm like finishing up her car and like it's beautiful, and there's one like plastic piece that goes like where the light is, and I was like polishing it, and it just snapped, it just broke, just because I think it was just an older piece of the vehicle that was just brittle. And I remember how upset she got about it, and I was like, you're joking, really?
Yeah.
Like you're tripping over this? Right. And I like had to hold it in, and like I just went to my manager, and he ended up taking care of it. But I was like, man, like it translates over now. It's like, okay, like like when I send stuff over now, like with my business, it's like, okay, like I gotta control my emotions and like just manage it and move on.
Yeah, for sure. So when I first got into real estate, I thought I was going to make all this money. I was like, all right, I'm going to go into the office, somebody's going to walk in, and they're going to be like, hey, Nate, I want to buy this house, and I'm going to write the contract up, and we're going to sell it. I'm going to make $10,000, and that's going to be awesome. Yep. And that's nothing like what it is, right? Especially with technology now. A lot of times people don't just walk into the office, right? So when I was very first starting, I'm cold calling and I'm, doing door knocking and I'm making mailers, and I didn't have the money to have people do that for me, right? So I'm just going through expired listings and handwriting notes, which people still do, even with the technology. But I had no direction. Nobody was telling me what to do or how to do it. And I was literally just like going for whatever I thought might bring me a sale.
Yep.
So it took me 6 whole months of not getting paid to get my first contract. You know, showing people houses, wasting my time, wasting my money because they were dead leads that probably never were going to actually buy a house. They were just shopping, you know, they weren't actually going to do anything. So my first sale was actually one of my uncles started flipping houses, and he was my very first transaction. And I was like, holy shit, this is cool. Like, at least I finally got something, you know, my unemployment doesn't have to pay for me anymore or whatever it was, right? So, so I got, you know, my first sale, and that was awesome. And then what actually ended up happening was a bunch of my employees started calling me from when I was a manager at Safeway, right? So they were, you know, in their early 20s, you know, thinking about
ready to buy,
buying a house and kind of taking that next step in life. So I was able to kind of start getting a little bit of momentum from that, right? Like I had a couple of my bakery girls called me and, you know, bought a house from me, and then that kind of just grew throughout you know, that
just
store.
To get that referral. I mean,
actually a couple of my best referral sources from my whole career was from one of my old Safeway employees. It's her now ex-husband, and his brother have been like hands down one of the best referral sources for the last 10 years. And it all kind of stems back
everyone goes to you from them.
It was just pretty cool, you know, to look back and think like, you know, those relationships I fostered back then have carried forward.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was really important in the beginning of my career to try to just figure out how the hell I'm going to do this, you know, and get better at it each time. So when I got that first deal with my uncle, it was cool, but obviously that's not going to pay the bills forever.
Yeah. What's the next step?
And you can't just rely on one client, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I got to keep growing, take this, you know, and continue to grow from there.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was a challenge the first couple of years, to be, you know, completely honest.
Do you want to share some stories or anything that
you
went through?
I just had, in particular, one client that would just waste my time all the time.
Yeah.
But because I was so new in my career, like I just mentioned, like I didn't really know the difference between somebody who's actually like gonna go for it or somebody who's just, you know, waiting for the perfect deal.
Yeah.
And the market was nowhere near where it is now, you know, back then. And this guy would lowball every offer, and it was just really difficult. So I had him and a couple of other clients, but that's all I had, right? So I had to continue to try to foster those relationships. And it finally just got to the point to where it was like, all right, I've got to figure something out. Like, I have to do better. These you know, clients that are wasting my time are not going to pay my bills. They're not going to help support my family. At the time, I didn't have a family. I had, you know, my girlfriend, who is now my wife. But it wasn't going to be sustainable. And that's kind of what the conclusion was. And when you don't have a huge base, you want to try to do everything you can to make these people happy. So I was even going and doing more things than I should have.
Yep.
I was everything. I wasn't just a realtor. I would, you know,
help with
cleaning everything,
and
you know, and I was doing way more than what was the scope of my job. And that came back to bite me in the ass a couple of times, right? So like I would dig up septic lids, and then I broke a riser lid one time. So then I was paying to, fix the riser lid. And it just got to a point where I was like, okay, I've got to find out a direction for my career. And even though I had, I was sitting by people that were, productive, it wasn't rubbing off the right way, right? So I made a transition to a different company because I thought that company would surround me with higher producing agents that were going to give me even better ideas, and I was going to be able to grow a little bit better.
Yep.
So that worked a little bit. I was kind of able to develop some other relationships and learn from some top producing agents and figure out, okay, they're doing pop buys, they're doing, mailers, they're making sure that they're fostering the client base that they already have, right? And I think that's really important in our business.
Yeah.
But again, I kept running into a wall, and I wasn't reaching the ceiling that I really thought that I had. I also had a lot of wasted time, going and doing lunches with other people that were not going to be productive in my life, right? I got a call from Kelly Griggs one day, and she said, "Hey, come have lunch with me." And I was like, all right. So I went down to her house, and I really think this conversation was kind of the pivot point in my real estate career. I went down to her house. We were just chatting. I actually had an issue with one of my files, and she was like, "Hey, why don't you come work for me?" Right?
Yep.
And I was at this point where I was like, okay, I want to grow my career, but I was actually honestly scared that I wasn't going to be able to live up to her expectations because she's such a great agent, right? Yep. So it was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to put in the time. Like, you work 24/7, and I like to play softball, and I like to go bowling, and I like to, hang out with my friends and all these things. But that lunch that we had, I walked outside, I called my wife, and I'm like, hey, look, I think I'm going to make this transition, and we had a baby at the time. I mean, she wasn't a baby, but we had, had a daughter, and my wife just said, you're going to do whatever's best for our family, and I trust you, right? And so I took the leap, went over and worked with Navigate. And honestly, it was like the best thing that I could have done for my career. Yeah. So what I thought was being surrounded by, top producers years back, it's
you realize like, no, these are.
Yeah, I realized like, man, if I wanted to grow my career, I needed to be over here, So each year my career has, at least grown by like 100%, right? So from year one to year two, it was 100%. I shouldn't say each year. Year one to year two, it was 100%, growth. And then I was given the tools and the support to be able to grow my business in the way that I wanted to. So over the last 4 years, it's like I can develop my business and still have the lifestyle that I want because I've been given the tools to succeed, right? And I think that's, been probably the best thing is like, I know where I'm capable of being, and I've gotten there, and I'm happy, and I can keep growing. I have all the tools and the people around me, but I'm also content where I'm at. Yeah.
Well, it's crazy, just like what one lunch can do, one
dude,
meeting,
it's nuts.
one networking, like what it turns into.
Yeah. And that kind of, again, goes back to fostering those relationships, right? Yep. So, like, that one lunch meeting has turned into, a great career. And it's transformed my life, And I think that's one thing a lot of people underestimate are the relationships you develop and how quickly things can change. Yeah. Just by taking, the next step and jumping into the deep end.
Well, 100%. It's just like, you could waste your time. Like, you could waste your time, and I have before, but it's like, I've had plenty of connections that I've made where it's just, it's changed my life too. Yeah. You just have to try it,
There's going to be failures. There's going to be setbacks. Not everything's going to be perfect, right? Yeah. But, taking those chances and taking those risks can be life-altering.
What are your plans for the future? Your powerful plans for growth?
So when I say content, like, that me being content is probably a lot different than other people being content, right? So like,
you were just very happy with your life.
Yeah. Like, I like where I'm at. Yeah. That doesn't mean I'm done. Yeah. Right. That doesn't mean that my goals, are no longer, higher than they were before. But I mean, as far as my real estate goes, I'm content with, how I know my business is going to run, etc. I have, goals of purchasing more real estate. I have a friend who has an awesome Airbnb business, and I follow a couple people on Instagram that are just, making hand over fist with their cash flow, on those Airbnb businesses. So that is kind of one thing that I'm looking into. I definitely want to continue to add to my real estate portfolio by purchasing more commercial real estate. Storage facilities is kind of something that's on my radar.
I think you had mentioned one in Placerville.
Yeah,
previously.
So I have a friend who owns a storage facility already in Placerville, and so I've just been like learning, from him, and being able to tap on him and ask him questions. I identified, a lot that I had considered developing. That particular project didn't work out, but that's okay. That's just kind of part of how it goes. But my goals just continue to grow and evolve, and it's because I'm inspired by the people that I'm around and, the people that I've surrounded myself with. And again, it all started when I made that decision to go to lunch with Kelly and grow my real estate career, which also grew, my financial security, which has given me the ability to do these things. Stuff, right. Like I've flipped houses, I'm working on an acquisition right now.
Well, and you're able to spend more time with your family. You've been spending a lot of time with your family, which is awesome.
Yeah. My family is obviously my number one priority. Yeah.
And the Packers.
Well, and the Green Bay Packers. Well, it's like God, then my family, and the Packers are almost close because like we do all that together. So
the Packers are family.
Yeah,
like we own stock in them. So
I am an owner of the Packers, and I have a certificate that says so. But no, my family obviously is my number one priority, and being able to kind of grow my real estate career and then transition into adding some other tools to my tool belt has given me the time that I want and need to be involved in my daughter's life and have a strong relationship with my wife, because I really feel like those are the important things. I work so that I can make money, and money gives me time. Right. And I think time is our most valuable asset. And a lot of people don't realize that. Right. Money to me is a vehicle. It's a tool. It's not the end all be all. Right. Like I want to be with my friends and my family and making experiences, not slaving away. Right. So obviously I do my time, and I have, time set aside for work. And then I have time set aside to go to see the Green Bay Packers lose. Right. Or win.
It's all right.
Whatever,
It's all right. What would you say is the top one or two things that you would recommend to people that have a vision for their life and how they can kind of achieve that?
First, don't ever stop, right? Like there's always going to be setbacks. If you have goals, you're going to have failure, right? That's 100% part of it. I would be lying if I, didn't say I have failure, because I do still. But fostering the relationships and trying to put yourself around the people that are pushing you to be better, right? I think that's the biggest part, and something that I've learned more so over the last couple of years than in years past is, kind of you are who your closest 4 or 5 friends are, right? So making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be like, right? If you're the richest person in the room, it's probably not a good thing, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, it's probably not a good thing. If you are, searching for a certain job or a certain title, you got to make sure that you're fostering the relationships that are going to get you to that place and give you the knowledge, right? People that are willing to share their knowledge is really important. I think, also on the flip side of that, if you're on the other end and you have people that, want to get to where you are, just being open and honest and being willing to share your story, share any, for me personally, I'm an open book, right? Like if somebody wants to ask me a question about, my failures, I'm open to it, right? Because they can learn.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How are your stocks doing today?
Well, it started out really good, and the day ended red.
It's all right. Hey, it's all right. He won before this. It's okay. It's just a rough day.
It wasn't that rough. But that's how it is, like life doesn't always go as planned, and there's hiccups along the way, and it's just making sure that you are always picking yourself up and going forward, right? I grew up in a less than ideal situation at times, and people use, their upbringing as kind of a crutch too often, I think, right?
Off of that, like, I just find, like, my childhood just, like, as motivation, because it's like, I've had a great life, but, like, I feel like my family has never really, like, pushed the limits of, like, what they're capable of. They're just very content and comfortable, and I can't. Like, I I want to be uncomfortable all the time. Like I want to just push and push and push and never stop.
Dude,
So,
I feel the same way.
and it's kind of a curse too, because like, sometimes I sacrifice too much, or I don't, spend time with people when I should, but it's like, I'm trying to build that life to where eventually, like, I don't have to worry about anything, right? So
I think that's the goal for most entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to push ourselves, and we know that there is no ceiling, right? Like we can go as far as we push ourselves, and there's also no floor, so you don't have a security blanket. And I think you also know that when your brain is in, that mode, it's like, I gotta grind because I'm gonna get to where I want to be. There's no safety net. There's no plan B.
Nope.
Right? And I say that to a lot of people, like there is no plan B for me.
Yeah.
Like there is plan A, and
that's it.
And that's it. Like plan A is going to figure itself out one way or another. Life works out, right? And I think that, people like you and I, we're going to find a solution. There are no problems. There are only solutions, right?
No, I totally agree. I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, first one. So I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah, dude.
And let us know what your visionary mindset is, and if you want to be on the podcast yourself, it's Matt Walter and Nate Davis signing off.